In this video, we are here with Andrew, and it is a bunch of fun to actually get to hop on a video with Andrew because he is not super on social media, but he is one of those Amazon sellers who is 100% the real deal. Has been selling on Amazon for, I think, like 4 or 5 years now, does like $1 million plus a year, all electronics. We've sold probably hundreds of thousands of the same types of products, which is a bunch of fun. And it was a bunch of fun that we actually got to meet and actually like talk on a video now. So Andrew, do you want to tell some of the people about like kind of how you got started, and then we'll just kind of take it from there?
Yeah. I've been selling on Amazon since 2018, I think was when I first got
so
started.
6 years.
Yeah. But before that, I mean, I got into e-commerce by just quitting my job without telling my wife one day. And I was like, listen, like I'm going to be a full-time eBay seller. That was like what I really wanted to do when I was just fed up with my, $9 an hour job. And I was like, I'm just going to dive right into it. I kind of got into a little bit of a fight with my boss, and I was like, I'm out. So,
what were you doing, if you don't mind me asking?
I was working for a while as at a ski area, for most of my 20s. I'm 36 now, but most of my 20s, like I was just kind of working like dead end kind of retail jobs and not making much money. But I was doing like a little bit of eBay on the side, kind of, it was kind of a hobby of mine to like go and find stuff to resell and just to have a little extra money in my pocket. And, but yeah, it wasn't until 2018 where I was just like, I'm done. Like, I want to try to do this full time. And that's when I got into like the whole like thrifting. So I was going to a lot of Goodwills back when that was kind of a thing. It's a lot tougher now, I think, now that Goodwill has a big online presence. But I was doing the math, and I was like, all I have to do is make $60 a day, and I'll make at least what I'm making right now, and I'll be having probably more fun. So
yeah, so like 2K a month, basically.
Yeah, it was the equivalent of a pretty low hourly rate. So it turned out to be, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But so I had to do like Uber on the side, and so I was doing that for a while. I would like Uber from like 8 to 10 a.m. and then 10 a.m. I'd be at the door of the Goodwill. I'd be the first one in there, and I'd be looking for anything that I could flip for a profit on eBay. So I was doing that for a while, and that's kind of how I got into e-commerce and that was pretty tough. It's not easy to go into a Goodwill every day and find like enough items to make like a reasonable salary. So I did Uber up until basically the beginning of the pandemic, maybe like January 2020, and that's when I stopped doing Uber because I wasn't quite sure about the whole coronavirus thing. So but that was kind of like where I figured out that I could actually source products like either from Facebook Marketplace or Mercari was a big thing. And at that time, I had kind of narrowed down like the items that I was looking for at Goodwill to like video games. They just sold so well, and like I could pick them up pretty cheap. And you'd list like a video game and it'd be gone. So I started going on Mercari and like setting filters to see like the first things that the newly added products for certain things that I knew that sold really well. And during the pandemic, because I was kind of freaking out. I'm like, I might not be able to go to Goodwill anymore. I might, I won't have.
Yeah, I forgot about that because they just closed
down. Yeah, I'm in Florida, so they adjusted their hours and they never really shut down. But I didn't really want to go as often as I did. But once I figured out that I could like I was mainly selling like Nintendo Wii's, and I was actually flipping them to like a a video game company that buys them. Like they have a price list, and I would go to like Goodwill and find what I could, and also pawn shops. Pawn shops were like my jam. I love sourcing from pawn shops, and I'd find like a bunch of Wii's. You know, I'd get them for like $20 each, and then I'd sell them to this company that would pay like $50 to $60 per Wii.
And that was just instant. Like it wasn't like sitting there waiting for them to sell.
That was instant, but there was a moment in time that I was like, what is this company doing with these Wii? Like, how are they paying this price? You know, and then, you know, Amazon was something I was trying to get into, but I didn't quite understand it. I had no idea that you could sell used electronics. Like, it didn't seem like something that, you know, people were going to hop on Amazon. That, you know, I figured everyone was going to eBay for like, you know, older video game consoles and stuff like that. So, but I noticed that there was an Amazon listing for Nintendo Wii, and like the Wii with like Wii Sports, if you're familiar with that bundle was selling for like $150. And I was like, oh, shit.
That's why they wanted to pay $50 or $60 all
day.
Yeah,
it was a good deal for me. Like it was really easy money, but I wanted to like figure out, you know, what they were doing and how I could kind of take, you know, how I could get into that. So, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna make a listing, and this is how like naive I was. I'm like, I'm gonna make a listing, and see what happens. So I listed the Wii with Wii Sports, and it wasn't selling. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't find my listing on Amazon on that particular ASIN like page, and you know, I call Amazon, and they're like, oh, you have your vacation settings turned on. And I'm like, oh. I clicked that off, so I was online, and like literally 10 minutes later, that sold like $150. Something I picked up, I think, for like $20 to $30, and I was like, oh, game on now. And I'm going on Mercari, and you know, people that just wanted to offload whatever old video games they had. Maybe they lost their job during the pandemic, and they just wanted to make some extra cash. People were listing stuff all over eBay and Mercari, you know, at just crazy prices, like really low prices. And I would just pick them up like instantly. And so, you know, I would just sit there on eBay and Mercari all day and just buy as much as I could. I didn't have a lot of money at that time, but I would just spend all the money I had on stuff, and it would, you know, arrive to my house. I'd take it out, test it, clean it, you know, kind of repackage it nicely and list it. And it was just flying off the shelves. So, you know, that's when it kind of really started. So, yeah, I mean, that's where, so video games are kind of my thing for maybe the first year of Amazon, you know, and once like I kind of saw the process really worked and I trusted it, I ended up taking out a $50,000 loan, and I was like, I'm gonna scale this as big as I can. And you know, I was just basically scouring the internet, looking for all the video games and consoles that I could find, like Wii's, PlayStations.
So Andrew, funny story about this. Basically, I'm not sure if you remember how we met, but we were selling some similar products, and I had one that I was trying to liquidate on eBay because I think it was like for parts or something. I think like some like cosmetic thing about it was slightly wrong, and I think part of what you were doing was like fixing them. So I listed it. I listed it like pretty low end of the market, and kid you not, 10 seconds later, you purchased it. And I saw the eBay buyer was your name on Amazon.
Right.
We had been selling on the same listings, several of the same listings for 6 months plus. And I'm like, oh, that's that guy. I'm going to reach out to him. I want to talk to him. So we were talking for like 3 hours that day on eBay. It was a bunch of fun.
Yeah. I remember getting a message from you. You're like, hey, I'm so-and-so from Amazon. Like, and I'm like, oh yeah. What's up? That's funny. Yeah. It got pretty tiring just like looking at, you know, the new listings coming in just constantly. But but now I actually hired a buyer for me who kind of, you know, looks around for the products that you know, I do well with, and I give her like a price list kind of updated every couple of days, and she'll go through. She's in Argentina, but so I have like a monthly salary with like a commission kind of based thing for her. So she does pretty well. And
how did you structure that out? Like, how did you come to the conclusion of how much to pay her, how much commission?
She's actually so my wife's from Argentina, and she had a friend who's over there who didn't have a job, and she was looking for something to do, and she was asking if she could help me, and so I basically asked my wife, I'm like, how much is like a reasonable salary like in Argentina? So so I paid her like kind of what the average person would make in Argentina with like to have a comfortable life. Yeah. And then I added $1.50 per item purchased to that, which can, you know, double or triple the salary based on how many items she purchases. So yeah, so it's kind of it's nice because I know her well. It's not I've never dealt with like virtual assistants like so, but yeah, she's kind of a trusted friend, and she I think she does pretty well for where she is, and so yeah, that's been working out. She and usually, like, you know, I always tell her, like, if you buy something that I'm looking for on eBay, especially if it's like a quantity, like if they maybe have like 10 of them, you know, I always tell her, just fire off a message and be like, hey, if you have more of those, I'd love to, you know, I'd love to do more business with you, you know, potentially off eBay, because that's always helpful, and that creates like, you know, long-term relationships with different sellers, because you know, if you're dealing with like, you know, office electronics, there's often, you know, electronic recyclers who do a lot of business on eBay, and you can look around on Google and find different recyclers, and you can send, you know, emails to them, and usually get a better price, and, you know, develop relationships with them, which helps, you know, scale a little bit. If you're only finding that you're getting 1 or 2 items here and there, like you might find that, oh, like I've got 20 more of those, like, you know, okay, let's, you know, cool. Make a deal. So,
yeah, like, cool. I made an extra like $3,000 because of that. Like, great.
Yeah, I had one. I sent you some pictures of what I got the other day.
Recently, like this week.
I had been buying some stuff from a guy, like, you know, 10 or 20 units here and there, and he messaged me and he's like, hey, your name came up. We got a bunch of these, and like, you know, if you want. I was like, yeah, sure, write me an invoice, no problem. And then he sent me the invoice. It was $30,000. I'm like, what? How many products? It was like over 200. So I'm like, okay. But, you know, but this all came from, like, you know, I literally started with $600, and I was in more debt than that. Like I didn't have much. So, you know, when I was going to Goodwill and I was spending like $75 a day, like, but, you know, once I understood the process of being able to identify products, see how well they sell, kind of have an idea of how to sort of forecast like what I might be able to do in a month or 2 months, like, you know, that then, you know, you can take out a loan, which is what I did, and you know, I was able to really scale what I did. Like, I'm not a genius. I'm like, there's opportunity here, and you know, money is kind of a tool. It's like, you know, back when I started, you could give me $100 and I'll turn it into 150 in one day, you know, by just kind of hustling around town and finding stuff and selling it on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. But, you know, now it's like, now I'm at a bigger scale. I probably, you know, spend like $40,000 a month on products to resell. So it's a much larger scale than it was. It's hard to believe myself. Like, but you know, it's totally possible for anybody, really.
I'm curious for you and like with that deal and what your regular ROI requirements are. So like just regular purchase, like do you have a specific ROI requirement? And if it's like that many units, are you willing to go lower on the ROI, or does it need to be higher ROI to justify you buying that many?
Yeah,
Because like you probably have to think about, like, I'm assuming you probably think about like, okay, like that might be 2, 3, 4, 5 months supply of it. Well, I don't know how much supply it is, but like I know for me, like if it's more than a certain amount of supply, it needs to be a higher ROI to justify me
for
putting
sure.
it.
Yeah. The price that they were offering was like way too good to pass up, and it was probably 40 to 45% ROI. And so normally I don't love to go that deep on a product, but given that it's something that I've sold a lot of, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to move them, within a month or two. It does tie up a lot of capital, like, because I do a lot of, I'm getting more into FBA. I was doing a lot of FBM, and I still do both, but most of it's going to be FBA, and I'm going to be doing some traveling soon. So like, I want to get it all out to FBA, and that can take a little while to kind of recoup some of your money, but it's also nice like that I'm leaving for like a month to Argentina, so that'll be cool to have a lot of product that in inventory that I will be able to kind of just let sell for me, and that's cool. But usually, like I actually got another offer for 500 of those recently, and I'm like, if it's, unless it's like 100% ROI, I can't deal with it. It's too much. And I most people don't know, I deal with mostly like a lot of discontinued electronics, and the prices fluctuate a lot. There's competition that comes in at very low prices, and they steal the buy box. Like, I just don't want to get in too deep on certain things. But yeah, if you kind of learn like certain products like that, you're like, yeah, this is a no brainer. Like, I'll take all of those, but because they move pretty well. But yeah, I usually want to test out a certain product and kind of look at the history of the sales in 𝗬𝗏, and kind of understand what, how well it's going to sell before I go crazy with it. I've gotten burned pretty a few times, like buying certain like I was doing really well with like Zebra like printers. Have you ever sold those? The thermal printers?
What model?
Oh, I think it was the 𝗬𝗏
Oh, I actually remember those. Wasn't there like a spike a couple years ago where it was like double the price and it came down?
I was selling them. I was buying them on eBay for like $100 each, and they were going for like $450 on Amazon and selling like all day.
Let's see. I might pull that up just for banter.
Yeah, check it out. I was going. That was when I started to get my first couple like cease and desist letters from them. I was getting into some new ones. The new ones were going up to like $600, and yeah, that kind of freaked me out. But all of a sudden, the price just tanked. It's still a decent product, but it's harder to get that margin on it now.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
I literally I'm looking at stacks of them. Like, I still have that I need to offload on eBay, but
you just like never sold through, basically.
I never sold through, and my problem is like I buy so much stuff, and like it's just me really like doing all the work. So sometimes I focus too much on like what makes me the most money, that I have a bunch of other stuff piling up, and like everybody has a death pile. I've got a pretty big one.
Yeah,
especially all the video games back here. This is a video game death pile. Great selling items. I just literally have no time to get to them. But I usually like I'll stock up on video game stuff for like the holidays, and that's when I kind of get into that, because it's a lot of it's a lot of work, like testing and cleaning, and you know, like a Nintendo Wii, it's got like 6 different pieces that it needs, so it's and the return rate can be kind of higher. So, but yeah, I gotta deal with those soon. But
yeah, it's kind of a hard. Sometimes it's a hard balance of like, okay, I have inventory to list, but like it might be more efficient for me to source other inventory that's easier to just list and ship quickly. But
for sure.
yes, then sometimes I'll just take a week and be like, okay, my death pile is like it needs to get dealt with immediately.
Yeah. I have somebody that's gonna come work for me for like, you know, at least the summer, and he's starting in about a week, so that's gonna give me a little extra time once I train him on how to keep my kind of bread and butter inventory moving and getting that out to like FBA, and you know, once he's good with that, maybe mix in a little FBM orders. That'll give me some time to sort of liquidate a lot of stuff and also do more product research, because I think, you know, when I was doing a ton of video games like throughout the pandemic, it really sort of crashed at one point, and like there was like a moment like maybe a little more than 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that like I was barely making any sales, and people were coming in on my video game listings at like ridiculously low prices. I'm like, how are you guys making any money? And it was, I was like really worried about how I was gonna, you know, get out of that. And one day I kind of just popped into a pawn shop and I found like this one item that I now sell a lot of, but I found this one.
Is it the one that we both sell a lot of?
Yeah.
Sold a lot of? Okay.
Yeah. I kind of came across it at a pawn shop, and it was $15. Yeah, it was $15. I had seen it there before, and I came back and I saw it there again, and I'm like, oh, my sales are down. Like I know I could sell that for like $50 on eBay. You know, after fees and shipping, maybe I'll make $20, $25. What, like, how can I say no to like free money? So I grabbed it, and I'm like literally in the car on the way home, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna check Amazon real quick and see if there's a listing. And there was a listing, and it was like $130 for there was only one seller, and it was a used item, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna list it and just see what happens. And I realized I was gated, and I'm like, oh man, I clicked the ungate button, and it was like, oh, you've been approved. And I'm like, oh, cool. And so I list it, I put it back, and I drive home. 10 minutes, I get home, and it's sold. And I'm like,
gosh,
holy shit. So I had another one of them that had just been kind of collecting dust in my garage, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna list this one, and I put it at 140 instead of 130, and that one sold within like 10 minutes, and I'm like, oh shit.
I think you're into something.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I have to get all of these. But you know, moral of the story is like, you know, I was so focused on video games that I wasn't even looking at any other potential product. And that like completely changed my life. So now I'm always, you know, interested in what else, you know, there is, like, and I've found a lot of other products just by, you know, even looking at other, you know, I look at the other sellers on my listings. I'll take a look through their store, and I'll write down ASINs like from what they're selling. You know, because you can even see like in just the list of products that they sell, like, you know, Amazon has that little thing, oh, 100 plus sold in the last month, or 200 plus sold in the last month. Like, and I'm like, I'll just write down all those ASINs, and then I'll go and kind of see, hey, am I ungated? Can I get ungated? Can I find these at good enough prices to resell? So, you know, I do a lot that way, and you know, of research, and it's been pretty helpful, and it's allowed me to scale a lot. So, you know, it's it could be as simple as just, you know, kind of looking a little bit wider than what you normally look for, or, you know, even when I'm in like any business that I go into, I'm looking over the counter like, hey, what kind of electronics do these people have? You know,
some of them have zebras.
The zebra printers, you can see,
yeah,
every time you go to a UPS store, they're behind the counter all the time. I sell them to UPS stores all the time. You know, and these businesses are buying used, like they're not buying new all the time. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really think of, like, you know, little scanners for the, you know, doctor's offices to scan your ID. You know, I mean, you go to a doctor's office and look behind the counter. I mean, there's so many different things that you can sell. So it's cool. It's a lot of fun. Of Amazon, I don't do much eBay anymore. That's really where you know, when I get a pile of things that I just couldn't fix, like I'll throw them on eBay and see what happens and kind of recoup some of my money. But yeah, that's
it's just interesting. Like there's those little like by chance moments like can really like make you a lot of money if you're like aware.
Like, yeah. And some people might say, oh, you're lucky for having that happen to you, but it's really like, you know, if you keep persistent and like you keep, you know, you keep sourcing, you keep doing all these things, like those opportunities will fall in front of you. And you know, that's the cool part about it. We have access to so many buyers, you know, with Amazon and eBay, and I'm on Walmart too, and that's been good. So I mean, it's yeah, it's you just have to kind of keep your eyes open and look around, and you never know what's going to pop in front of you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also found like some of these items. I was cleaning out like an office they were selling the building, and they were just relatives, and so they're like, you can just sell this stuff instead of us donating it. And they had two of these, and I sold them at 140 as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, where can I get more?
Yeah.
So I was selling on eBay at the time, so I was like, maybe they're on eBay. I had purchased books to buy and sell on Amazon at the time from eBay, so I was like, yeah, maybe this will work. And then like literally like a couple, like maybe a year ago at this point, I was at an estate sale. I found like a new in the wrapper, like meat thermometer of all things, and it was like $300 on Amazon. I'm like, what the heck is this? And ended up doing like 10,000 profit. That's like a smaller example, but like 10,000 profit of like those meat thermometers, buying and selling.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I remember like just looking through Goodwill. You remember those little like voice recorders, the like you know, like
there's so many. Are you talking about like Sony's?
Yeah, those do pretty well. I should probably look into that for Amazon. But I remember finding one that was new in the package, and I'm like, oh, and I scan it with the eBay app, and it was like $400, like consistent sales on eBay, and I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, it's pretty wild. You know, doing the sourcing at Goodwill was pretty good for me, just to kind of like, I'll look for literally anything at that point, you know, and I'm like, anything that looks interesting, you know, hop on eBay, see the solds, and you know, usually if you find something that's consistently selling well on eBay and at a certain price, and you can kind of figure out what the market price is, like usually it's a lot higher on Amazon if it's something that people look for on Amazon. So yeah, that's it was fun. I kind of wish like the good old days of Goodwill were back. You still source at Goodwill, or
like in person?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was there like maybe like 4 months ago. I think maybe like last year I was running into some capital issues with like the online arbitrage stuff. So when I was having capital issues, I would just like go to estate sales, thrift stores, do that type of stuff. But
I still, yeah, I haven't, I've been to a Goodwill recently, but the ones around here, just like, it's
not working. Do you ever do estate sales?
Estate sales are great. I haven't been to one in years, but that was definitely like I would look at like Estate Sale Finder. I think there was like an app or and I'm in Florida, so there's a lot of estate sales. Yeah, I would look at like what what's going on a Friday, because usually that's when they start, and I would check them all out, because they can be pretty good. I remember finding a brand new pair of like Converse Chuck Taylors that had never been taken out of the box from like the 80s at an estate sale for like $10. I think I sold them for like $300 on eBay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was fun. Like that whole like sort of treasure hunt kind of beginning to like my e-commerce journey. But yeah,
I'm curious what your biggest one item profit flip is. So like just one item. And I guess you can answer first by like how much profit, and then number 2 by ROI. Or they might be the same, but I know mine are really different.
Yeah, but kind of before I really got into like, before I was like treating this whole thing as like a business, like when my grandfather passed away, I was like, I was looking through his house and I found like a set of books. It was Winston Churchill's Complete Speeches. Look it up because it is a banger. I mean, probably ridiculously hard to find, but it was like these like leather bound books, and I'm like, oh, these look pretty expensive. And I remember taking them, and I didn't do much with them for a while, but when I was like kind of flipping a few things on eBay, I looked it up and I found somebody had recently sold the whole set. It was like an 8-book set, and it was like $1,200, and I'm like, oh shit. And so I went on Amazon to check, and it was like, I think there was one listing and it was like $2,500. And so I came in at $1,999, and I made the listing, and it sat for about a year probably, and until one day all of a sudden I'm looking at my daily sales, and all of a sudden it goes up by like $2,000, and I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh my god.
How did you not reprice that down, thinking that your price was too high?
This was like right at the beginning, and I listed them, and I
just weren't thinking about it.
it had like a 500,000 DSR. Like I was like, this is probably not going to ever sell. And
eventually, like 5 million.
It was probably 5 million. It was like really crazy high, and I'm like, this will never sell. And actually, since I'm from Vermont, they were at my parents' house, and I had moved to California at the time, and that's when they sold. And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, I need this money. And I had to call my mom. I'm like, can you get these books and like put them in a box for this person? And so that was $0 to 2,000. As far as like buying anything like at a Goodwill,
that literally might be the biggest. Is that the biggest profit for one item?
Sure. On one item, for sure. Yeah, I think like I was at a Goodwill recently, not recently, at one point, and I saw this clock, and it was it's called I'll never pronounce the name correctly. It's like 𝗬𝗓𝗓. It's like this like mantle clock. It's like a gold little mantle clock. It's really cool, and it runs off of like the atmosphere. Like it's like a really incredibly made clock. And my grandfather had one, and I remember seeing it at his house like after he had passed away. And I was at a Goodwill one day, and I'm like just kind of going in with my cart, and I glance over to the side, and I see one on the wall, and I'm like, holy shit, because they regularly sell for about like. There's so many different like models of it, but like some of them can sell minimum like $500, but like they can be thousands of dollars. And I see one of them on the on the rack, just like chilling there. I think the person had just taken it out of the cart and just plopped it up there, and it was $25. And I'm like, oh my God. And I run over there and grab it. And yeah, that day I listed it on eBay, and I think I sold it for about $600. So that was pretty cool. Those are the days when that was I needed that money. So yeah, that was great. You never know what you're gonna find at a Goodwill. It's probably different wherever you are in the United States. Like, some Goodwills are probably still good, but since I focused so much on video games at that time, they started selling them, on Amazon and eBay, and you couldn't find anything else, any good stuff at the Goodwills around here anymore. So it got kind of tough around the pandemic. So, but yeah, probably, $25 to $600, and it was like a clock dealer. So who knows how much he resold that. Yeah, I could tell by the person who bought it on eBay that they were clearly like a clock store or something. So they flipped it. But there's a food chain in the flipping.
There definitely is. It's like the people who know about clocks are just going to buy from anybody in the world who finds a nice clock.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Like, the consumer isn't sitting there like typing it into eBay chat or the eBay search bar like
right.
Clock 4 times a day. Like, that's not how they get their clocks.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. But Goodwill was cool. I always made friends with the people in the back, because I would hang out in Goodwill for 2-3 hours at a time every day, and all the people would know who I was, and I'd be like, hey, they know I was looking for video game stuff, and every day one would pop their head out and be like, hey, I'm about to bring out a bunch of video game stuff, and I'm like, ooh. And I'd catch her before she even got to the thing, and she would just put all the stuff in my cart, and it got to that point at one time, so it's definitely nice to to be nice to the people that work there, and to be friendly, and it doesn't hurt to tell them, hey, I'm looking for this stuff, if you're looking to flip certain items. So, because some of them just really don't care, they're just like, yeah, sure, I'll give you everything we've got, and it's so that was pretty good at one point, but once I figured out how to use Amazon and how to make even more money, that was when it really took off. So
did you ever do the whole thrifting thing but purposely selling onto Amazon, or was it always thrifting to eBay, or thrifting mostly to eBay?
At the beginning it was thrifting to eBay, and then once I kind of got Amazon going, I'd be buying. I would go into Goodwill, and I'd be looking for all sorts of stuff. I'd go to the video games first. That was basically what I was going to be selling on Amazon. And then, I'd find sports jerseys and other stuff like that I knew eBay was the spot for, So it was kind of a mix for a while. And then once Amazon really picked up, I was like, I'm just going to focus on Amazon, because that's just, the best use of my time. And now it's really strictly Amazon. I do a little bit on Walmart, but it's pretty slow, for the types of products that I have. Hopefully with having an employee, I'll be able to maybe look a little bit closer at that. Walmart's pretty, Amazon can be kind of scary. You're listing new stuff on Amazon. You have to be careful, with IP complaints and that kind of thing. Walmart is the Wild West. I don't think they really care at all, because I've sold plenty of new stuff, and it's Walmart doesn't seem to care. They barely have any seller support. It's just I have gotten a couple cease and desist letters from Sony PlayStation, for selling PlayStations on Walmart, but they were used, so I'm not really. I kind of just been ignoring that.
Yeah, been ignoring it. Yeah.
Yeah. Walmart was wild this past holiday season. I always come back to video games, because I feel people that just kind of want to get into e-commerce, video games are such an easy thing to find at really low prices. and they can be pretty valuable. And like, I'm not a video game nerd at all. I don't know. I didn't really grow up playing a ton of video games. I just like kind of learned as I went, you know, the different consoles that sold, like the popular game titles to look for. But Walmart was just wild. Like I was selling like Wii U consoles on Walmart literally just this past Q4, and like a used Wii U was going for like $300, and it's like you can go into any pawn shop. I don't know if you guys have pawn shops around you, but even Facebook Marketplace, people will sell those all day at $100, and you can just sell it for like close to 300 on Walmart. Like,
so was there no Amazon listing for that, or the Amazon listing?
It was, and it was like it was closer to 200. So I'm like, I don't know how this is working, but I'm just gonna, I got a couple returns, but the majority of them did not come back to me, and I'm like, this is crazy. But so e-commerce is kind of like that. It's like, you have Karens in Minnesota that see the buy box price, and maybe their child, they think their child wants that, or they'll just buy it, and that's it. It's like, you just have to kind of just go with it, and you just come in at the lowest price, and if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, I sold a few at that price, and once I saw those sales coming in, I'm like, okay, this is a thing. So I'm just gonna load up as many of those as I can.
Yeah.
It's a little time consuming because I am just kind of a one person show, so I have to like use my time wisely. So mixing a lot of like FBM stuff and trying to keep like things moving to FBA is pretty challenging. For me, I have to like split up the days and like do FBA one day and then FBM another day, or so it's you do a lot of FBM now. I've been noticing.
Yeah. So I think for probably the first like 2-3 years, I just did FBA like religiously. FBA would not.
Right.
I think I FBM'd like 3 TI-84 plus calculators or something, and it was like that was my extensive FBM experience, and I'm like, this is dumb. I have to deal with returns.
Right.
Blah blah blah. But no, I do mostly FBM now. Yeah. Just I think it's much better for cash flow. I also like the whole. It feels a lot more secure with like capital preservation. Because like I definitely have my days where I'm anxious about Amazon, like the 1% chance of getting suspended for some reason. I'm sure most sellers have that, at least to some extent. So like with FBM, I'm like, okay, like if I get suspended, I lose my payout, and like I sell on Walmart basically. Like, like I'm gonna be okay. Yeah. How do you deal with that?
I deal with it. It's always in the back of my mind, like getting suspended for whatever reason. But I like selling used items because there's really no reason why I would get suspended. I do sell a few new items, but I've never had any problems with them in the past. Like, so I feel pretty secure about kind of just dealing with used stuff because I rarely get any IP complaints. I literally haven't gotten one in 2 years. I got one because I went on to, actually it was a Zebra listing, but the listing was created by like a different brand, so the listing had to include like labels from like this different brand, and like,
is it does that happen to be it was like North Point Distribution or something like that? Yeah, when I was searching the ZP505, the first thing that came up was his listing, and I just see like one offer on the bottom of the.
It's a great price. It's a great bestseller ranking. It looks great. Don't go near those guys because I mean nothing happened. But I did get a cease and desist letter from them Like,
so you didn't get a claim, but you got letters.
I did. I got a claim too. Yeah, I got the cease and desist. I ignored it. I kept selling on the thing, and then I got an IP claim, which now I'm restricted from that listing, which is fine. But you know, I hate to see anything. I mean, every time I get an email from like Amazon, I'm like, what is this? And
yeah.
I'm like, oh.
When it's in the subject line, like you're like something about your selling accounts.
Oh God, yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, especially like your account is at risk of deactivation banner for what you know. I've gotten a couple of those just from like late shipment. So, but I've been
that was another reason I wouldn't FBM, because I was really scared of that. I was really scared of having like, I think I had the thought in my head that if I had bad metrics, that they were going to shut my Amazon account down, not just my FBM privileges.
Yeah, it's that's why it's been so difficult for me to like get enough out to FBA, because I'm like constantly trying to make sure I get every order fulfilled that's FBM, and you know, I don't want that to affect my ability to have the buy box or, you know, anything like that, because, you know, that can really hurt sales. But, you know, usually I'll do a lot of like testing and cleaning and packaging of stuff in the morning, and then like by maybe 1 or 2 p.m. then I start just kind of banging out the FBM orders, and then like maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock comes around, then I'm like, I'm gonna get like 2 boxes of FBA shipments out. So that's kind of like I usually start work around like 10 a.m., hang out with the kids in the morning, and then start around 10 a.m. So, but yeah, as a one-person show, I have to like break my day up, and like, even though I'll have stacks of stuff that I wish I could get out to FBA, like, you know, it doesn't usually work that way. But I'm finally getting some help here in the next week, so that'll be nice. I'll be able to get more done that way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, they know about prep centers, and they're like, they'd probably be thinking like, well, why doesn't he just use a prep center? Like, obviously he's a really good seller. Why wouldn't he use a prep center? But like, I think the business model that you're in it's both a curse and a major blessing, because like a lot of it's used items, and so you're not really like going to be super comfortable sending that to just about any prep center, because it's like there's so many different little parts, and then they kind of need to be secured well. They need to actually be like, some of them at least need to be tested. So it's like, to send that to a prep center, it would just be like rough to do, and so that keeps other people out. And
yeah, I like to have eyes on all of the products, just to keep a certain like quality. It would be different if I was buying, you know, bulk items that were brand new. I'd love to sell them, you know, send them out to a prep center. But I buy a lot of, you know, bulk electronics that look like they've been through 2 wars. So I need to like make sure they're super clean. And now I'm actually doing Amazon Renewed. So so now I actually have 2 accounts. And the renewed items need to be like literally perfect, according to them. I kind of wonder how well people clean and test certain things that they sell on renewed. But you know, they say that they do like test buys every once in a while, and it literally has to be like, you know, what an open box item would look like. So now I really have to like make sure that the quality control is like spot on. So yeah, for what I do, I you know, it's definitely time consuming, the testing portion. You know, if I had them going out to a prep center, like, it's really hard to know exactly if they would be like going through the certain protocols that I have set up. I had to send Amazon like standard operating procedures for, you know, my whole operation, like, and show them like step by step, like how everything is tested, how it's cleaned, how it looks when it's done, how it's packaged, and so that's kind of why I don't really use the prep centers. And I've had kind of one way of doing it for so long that I haven't really looked into the prep centers, but I know you said you had been using them for certain items, and it was kind of, they weren't quite, it wasn't quite working out for you.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I was doing the used items that we were both doing. I was sending them to a prep center, and I mean, I was making like good, decent profit, but a lot of stuff was getting broken. And my return rate was like really high. So it was a massive trade-off, because maybe I was able to do it with less time. But like a lot of my margin like eaten up by like broken stuff.
I think not sure exactly with Renewed, but I know that you have to keep your metrics like within a range that's even tighter than what like a normal Amazon account would require. So it's the monster that I created, and now I'm but I love doing this. Like, it's so much fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But yeah, now it's all about how do I optimize all my process and that kind of thing. So but my wife actually helps me as well. So she's kind of in on the, it's kind of like a husband-wife operation that we have going here. So I'll usually bring her crates of things, and I'm like, these need to be tested, and she'll be doing that for me while I'm doing something else. So but it's fun. You can really like front load a ton of work with FBA. You can spend a whole week working 10-hour days, and then take a couple weeks off. Like, I've done it. I spent two months in Argentina last year, and still was able to do 60 to 80,000 a month while I was there. So that was great. I had hired a couple of neighbors just to like do a few things for me, send out a couple of boxes to FBA, here and there, and so it's cool. With some of the items that I do sell, I buy all my boxes from Uline. So I bought like a big box that like perfectly fit 8 of the boxes that I send my products in. So I'll box up like 8 of the items that I sell, and I'll put them in the big box, and they all like slip in perfectly. So I'll send one of those. That'll be like an FBA shipment for me. So I try to get like at least 2 of those out a day. If I have extra time, maybe 4 or 5, just to keep the flow, so I can hold the buy box. But
speaking of like flow with your efficiency, how do you determine like, okay, like I'm going to spend more time on like that type of product because it takes me like X amount to prep one unit? So like, let's say it takes like 8 minutes per unit to prep like full process. And let's say you make $50 profit on each one. So that comes out to an hourly, versus like doing Renewed, where let's say it's like a video game console or something, but let's say it's like $100 profit, but it takes like 11 minutes. Or do you ever like granularly like time out those things and be like, okay, like this is the more efficient thing, I'm doing more of this and less of this?
Yeah. Right now it's definitely focusing on like Renewed electronics. The video games right now are just kind of like it's like free money on the side. Like, I wasn't doing it, but I know that they sell, so I'm like, I'll do a couple of those here and there. But really, it's like office electronics, like things that are selling really well. Right now, I've been Renewed for almost like 3 months, so that's now the majority of my sales right now. So but in my other account, I'm still selling the same product. So I will like bulk prep all of the items that I have. And in the process, I'm saying, okay, this one is Renewed. This one will go to the other account. and there are certain listings where I'll sell like a used one, like that's like in pretty banged up for more money that I'm selling on renewed, because there's just some price fluctuations here and there. So I'm just feeding both of those accounts right now. I'm trying to get more FBA, but I have like, I don't turn off my FBM listings unless like I don't have any FBA inventory available. So I've got FBM orders coming in all the time. So that's something that I don't really want to stop, because I feel like it's like you're losing out on sales by not having the FBM offer up. But I found that like when I do get all of those items to FBA, I can sell at a slightly higher price, and it just like, it would just be kind of better off just to keep FBA, just to keep everything flowing there. But it's so hard to keep stuff in stock. Like normally oftentimes I can't get enough of the items that I want. So I'll get a lot of stuff into FBA, and it's like they just sell all, in 2 days they're gone. And then I've got more on the way. I've got more on the way, but it takes so long for them to get checked in sometimes. So that's where FBM is kind of like a savior. You can sort of keep those sales coming in and that cash flow. So yeah.
When I was doing FBA, I like had this thought in my head that merch fulfilled like just doesn't sell unless it's like a really fast listing. Yeah. It's like, man, like I did not know anything.
I felt the same way, because me as an Amazon consumer, like when I'm looking up an item, I'll click Prime only, like, and I'm not even seeing the FBM. That's why when I started out, I'm like, there's no way like I can sell a used video game console on Amazon as like FBM. Like it just didn't seem like it would work. But sometimes, I mean, because it takes so long for things to get checked in, oftentimes like an FBM listing will win the buy box over FBA, just because of the fulfillment promise that you're giving the customer. And there's kind of like a sweet spot with like how fast can you get it to the customer, and kind of where your price is to like where you can get the buy box. And if somebody's like got a bunch of items on the way to Amazon, like maybe somebody wants Prime, but it's going to take 2 weeks to get here, whereas they could get it for in a week from this other person. So, and sometimes Amazon will reward FBM sellers and give them the buy box. So that's something to consider if you're only trying to do FBA. But yeah, so it's every day is just like it's just insanity. It's just trying to figure out the best way to move all the stuff that I get, because I'm I'm selling at such a high scale now. So it's but yeah.
So basically for you basically, whenever you're sourcing, you basically are thinking like, okay, this will be good FBM, this will be good renewed, this might be good renewed or used. And so I'll parse it out when I get it, and like kind of just determine like what's going to be best in whatever place. And you just do all three of those.
Honestly, I have like some hot selling like electronics that I've listed out to my buyer, and I'm like, here's my price. And then when they arrive, then I'm doing I'm looking at renewed versus like regular used. So if it's in good enough shape to sell on renewed, great. That'll go that way, and the other ones will go to my other account. So, but renewed has been pretty cool. Like, the TI, like the TI-84 calculator.
Yeah.
TI-84 Plus. Like, I feel like, what is the Amazon like listing for this? Because the renewed one is wild. These are going for like $85, and I think the regular Amazon is like 40-ish, maybe.
Dang, really?
Yeah. Wow. And these are like flying off the shelf. So I'm like, this is something like I'm now like, okay, I gotta load my renewed count up for these. Like, the 𝗖cie_CE.
The colors, yeah.
That's a pretty good one. So my buyer is getting all of them for me.
It just actually has a stack of like $1,000 of calculators right there.
Oh yeah. I've got even more than that.
Yeah.
Just like this is what stacks up for me, and then it's like, okay, maybe I'll go through all those one day and clean them really well, make sure they work perfectly, and then I'll package them up nicely like this, and once they're all clean, so then
do you have to like go and buy a cord for them as well?
Yeah. They originally with Renewed, if it originally came with the product when it was new, it needs to be included. So, but it's just like a little USB cord to charge it. If you're just selling this calculator, which also does really well on non-Renewed listings, in the $80s, $90, you can say, hey, you can always write a note that says, calculator only, doesn't include charging cord. But I bought a bulk lot of them on eBay for and they came out to like 10 cents each. So I'll just throw one of those in with each of the calculators that I sell. So and right before a new semester is starting, those things just fly.
I bet you just sell out immediately.
Yeah, I'll
sell out immediately, or depending on how you price, I guess. But
oh yeah, you'll sell 20 a day, like if you have the buy box, and it's especially if it's like end of the summer and there's like new college or high school semester starting, like people are just buying those up all day. Yeah, and the returns haven't been too bad, so they're pretty bulletproof. But if you're careful and you're looking around on those on eBay for those, you can find them in the $40 range, and easily sell them for 80 or something. So yeah, I mean, and when I do such like if I'm selling a lot of something, that's when I'm cool with like a 30% ROI, maybe 25%, because I'm just like, I have the capital for it, so I'm just gonna buy it, and it's gonna sell, and it's just hard to leave money on the table. When I just started out and I didn't have a lot of capital, then I was a little I was very choosy. I didn't want to tie up money in something that wasn't going to make me at least 50% ROI. So, but now, now that I have a little bit more money to work with, I can identify those like fast selling items, and then I'm cool with like spending $10 to make like $3. Like that's kind of
and it's usually more like spending a little bit more to make it's more like 10, 15, 20, $30 profit. And then you're doing like a stack of like 50 of them, and you're just doing the same action of like putting a cord in, bubble wrapping, cleaning it. It's so much easier if you can clean like 50 calculators in one go versus just like one item. Yeah,
and it's pretty easy. I use like just like a little rag and like some rubbing alcohol, and just wipe it down, make sure it works perfectly. Like little rubbing alcohol gets every stain off. I'll bubble wrap them, and then I'll probably put this in like a poly bag or something, and then I'll box up everything I've got and send it into FBA. And that's a product I won't bother FBM. I'll probably just send them all to FBA and just let them sell, just because they're so easy to like prep and so easy to box up and just get out the door. So
yeah. So I'm curious, in the next 12 months, like what are your like sales goals and like profit goals? Like what are you working on? What's the next step for you?
Yeah, right now I'm kind of on track. The last 2 years I've done like a little over $1 million in sales, and I believe like right now I'm kind of on track to do like 1.4 million, maybe 1.5. 1.5 is my goal. Like that would be like, just because I have the Renewed account now, I think Q4 with like video games. I'm trying to find like a wholesale video game supplier that can like get me stuff. I'm talking
Alibaba is pretty good.
I'm talking to one now, and what's that?
Alibaba is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I actually, it's funny.
Don't use that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. The video game people that I sold Wii's to back when I just started, and that, you know, when I was selling all those Wii's to them, and then I'm like, what are these guys doing? They were selling on Amazon, and now they're trying to get into a more wholesale model, and they actually reached out to me a few months back, and they're like, we don't sell on Amazon anymore. We were wondering if you were interested in selling our products on Amazon. So it's kind of come full circle.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I've been talking with them, and like, it's so hard to communicate with them. So I'm not sure where that's at, but they actually refurbish all kinds of like retro video game stuff. And they, you know, which would be cool. I could buy in bulk. They're already packaged, which I wouldn't have to touch them. So like, that would be really cool if I could do that. And some of the Nintendo Wii renewed listings are wild. Like the bestseller ranking is like under 1,000, and like you can look at some of the Amazon pages, and it's like 2,000 sold in the past month. Like, yeah. I've sold a few renewed Nintendo Wii's, and literally when I list them, they're gone in 20 minutes. Like, and I see these people on the listings. I'm like, how do you have that much supply? But so I'm trying to work with them. It would be cool to be able to add that in. And he was actually talking about giving me like a custom price and having it work out to be about $20 profit per item. So I'm like, you know, if they're selling this well, like I would gladly do that. So, but
how do you factor in like the price of returns with that though? Like if it's something like 15-20% ROI on a video game, like how do you like figure that out?
Yeah, that's what I haven't been able to talk with them about, just because that is a pretty big concern, especially with renewed. The customer gets 90 days to return the item. You know, and a lot of times, I just got one of those Amazon emails, freaked me out.
About your selling account.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a gamble. I'm not exactly sure how I would calculate the return. I'd probably have to go back and look at how many I've sold and see kind of where the return rate was with the video games. It can be pretty high. Sometimes people buy them and then realize like they don't really want it, and you know, they have 30 days to return it, no questions asked. So yeah, but yeah, 1.5 million is my goal this year. And I'm usually around like a 35% margin, kind of like for profit. So
on your sales or on your ROI?
On the ROI, sorry. No, on
so if you do 1.5 million,
closer, yeah, it's probably closer to like to 20%, maybe in that, like if you're talking like pure profit. Yeah. So, but yeah, another one of my goals was to possibly maybe get like a small warehouse and hire like 1 or 2 people and try to kind of trying to take a step back from the whole, you know, everyday process of what I'm doing now, and you know, take more time to do the product research and help my buyer sort of be able to identify the products as well, so that I can kind of free up a little bit more of my time. As it is, like I don't really, I mean, Amazon's kind of like my life, but you know, as far as like my days go, I'm pretty much working like 10 to 4 or 5 most days, which is not too bad. If I want to take the day off and play golf, like it's no problem. If I want to go for a vacation, you know, for a week or two, I can plan for that. But I think I've run into like a point where it's really difficult to scale. You know, if I ever wanted to do 2 million, 3 million, I definitely need a warehouse and employees. So that's always been something that I've been interested in doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the prep and like shipping of stuff is the bottleneck, because like it's kind of a harder business model to do like 10 million of, because
it is, yeah, for sure, yeah. Not to say that it's not possible, but you know,
I just need more delegating.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I've spent quite a few years, you know, building up to this point, and now it's like I know that I have enough knowledge that I can sort of pass that off to somebody else or a couple people, and you know, and that's kind of when I feel like I'll have a real business, when I'm not like the main reason why it's running, you know, like, you know, hiring a couple people and having them be able to keep everything flowing. So yeah.
But like the other side of it though, like, so if you do you were saying 1.4 million or 1.5 million this year?
I based on my sales, I'm kind of going towards 1.4, but it's really hard to say with renewed. I did 1.2 last year without renewed, so I think I've already seen my sales increase like about 20%. So I feel like that's a reasonable goal, and I still haven't discovered all of the, you know, all of the potential products that I'm maybe missing out on. And I think once I have somebody working for me later this month, that I'll be able to kind of look, you know, take a step back and be like, okay, you know, what else can I sell? So, so I think
the other side of it though is like even just like last year, like 1.2 million at a 20% margin, like that's 240K profit. And if you're just like above that this year, like, oh, boohoo, like it's not a perfect business and everything, but you're going to make 250K plus this year, which is absolutely incredible. Working for yourself, able to take a vacation when you want to. It's the dream.
Yeah. My accountant's always like, what exactly do you do on Amazon? And I'm like, oh, I buy stuff on eBay and then I clean it and I sell it on Amazon. And he's like, this is incredible.
So, you don't get schemes?
Yeah. He's always like, why don't they just buy it on eBay themselves? And I'm like, I already bought it. That's why. So.
Well, do you want to buy on eBay? Like most people are like, they feel like they're going to get scammed, or it's going to be broken, or they're not going to be able to return it.
It's a pretty awful buying experience too, because, you know, I think I buy lots of stuff from just random people on eBay, and it'll show up in like a pizza box, like, you know, with like, you know, trash bags inside. You know, they'll put, people won't take the money.
I got a Little Caesars box like a couple months ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've gotten pizza boxes before. Shoe boxes. Yeah, it's a step up, but you know, and I've gotten things that smell like cigarettes. It's just not a good, you know, not a good experience. But you know, that's why Amazon. I really try to take pride in like how my things are packaged. I want it to look like it's coming from a real business. Like, you know, you put a little. I print out tons of little cards that have like, you know, customer service stuff. Like I'll make a QR code that they can scan for a user guide on the product. So, you know, and there's tons of thermal printers you can buy to create little cards like that. And that's why Amazon is just, you know, people will pay a premium to shop there because it's a better experience, especially with the customer service. So, that's why. Yeah, eBay kind of sucks, but it's a great place to source.
It really is.
And they usually side with the buyer. So, like, you know, if you get something that it wasn't exactly what you wanted, you know, eBay will generally, make sure you get a refund and everything. So yeah.
So I'm curious, for those who are literally, if you're still watching this an hour and 15 minutes in, you are a champ. But like, if you haven't gotten started yet, like Andrew, like what advice do you have for people who haven't gotten started yet or are like kind of new in their journey of selling on Amazon?
On Amazon, yeah. I mean,
or on eBay too. But
I think it's important to like to understand eBay a little bit in terms of like a tool to help source, because you know, it's not as like strict as Amazon. I think it's like it's good to kind of look around even in your own house and try to find a few things that maybe you're not using that you can list on eBay. It's important to like to learn, and there's tons of YouTube videos like how to look at sold comps and figure out what the market price for a certain item is, and then you know, make a listing and sell it on eBay. Like learn how to ship your items. I think it's a good place to start. If you want to dive right into Amazon, it's yeah, the probably the best place to start would be to understand like bestseller ranking and be able to see to use 𝗬𝗂 to sort of understand like sales history of a certain item, and then make the listings and like just watch it happen. Like, you know, when you make your first sale or first couple sales, like I know for me that like really lit a fire, and it was like I was like, where can I find more stuff? And just being consistent. My first year, I think I did like $20,000 in sales. It was by no means like you know, anything I could have lived off of. I was doing Uber on the side, but I just kind of kept at it, and I got better at the whole process of like sourcing and listing and shipping and you know, but second year I did 75,000. I think the third year I did like 150,000 in sales, and then that jumped to 500,000, and then I did $1 million. So it's, and I've seen people in your Discord like that are just doing crazy numbers way faster than I did. But it's like, you know, it's like it's just better to jump right into it and just stay consistent. And if it's something that you want to do on the side, like for now, like just keep at it. And it's really incredible what you like, how much progress you can make from one year to the next. And, you know, from now until 2 years or 5 years later, it's wild what people can do. It's completely changed my life, and that's because I stuck with it. Even when I was barely paying my bills, it was still something that I enjoyed. I was working from home. You know, my first sort of year, my wife was pregnant. I was able to be home with her. Like we had our first kid, and now I'm able to be home with the kids, and you know, so it's really fulfilling, especially like working, you know, for yourself. For me, like I wake up and I'm excited to do what I do. Like it feels good when I do well, you know. And I remember like when I quit my job, I remember the first thing I thought was like, I can make as much money as I want. Like that was like the first thing that came to my
That's such a good mindset.
Yeah, because like, you know, nobody can tell you how much money you can make. You know, if you, because I was trying to make that $60 a day, and then I'm like, I can make 120 a day. I know I can. And it's like, and then, you know, if you can figure out how to get to there, and then you try to get to the next level. And but you know, with Amazon, I think it's you want to make sure that you're promising like to the customer exactly what they're expecting. I think it's you know, I know with eBay, people try to get away with stuff. They want to make money. They try to list something, oh, tested working, and like they didn't even look at it. And you want to be as genuine to your customer as you can. And I think as long as you're doing that, you're not going to have any problems with Amazon. And yeah, no, it's there's tons of stuff out there. It might be a little harder than it maybe when I started, but it's definitely still possible to break into.
Yeah, I think literally it's harder now, but the information, there's so much better information now that outweighs how much harder it is. You literally said like the people in my Discord are doing great. Like in their first year, like they're doing like 20K a month or something.
That's great. That's insane.
There's just so much more information out there.
Exactly. I think the info's out there. It's a little tougher to get ungated for certain things, but there are ways to do it. You can find places and ask in the Discord. I asked the other day about getting ungated for Nintendo because I'm still gated in some parts for Renewed.
Interesting.
Yeah, and a bunch of people had some suggestions for me. It might cost you a little bit money up front, if you need to make an order from a certain distributor, but it's definitely worth it, especially if you're looking at a product that looks like it's something that would sell well. So but staying consistent, it's not going to happen overnight, but you can
consistent like over the course of like several years too, because like you said, like the first year you did like 20K in sales. I think I was in a similar boat, probably a little bit less. I was doing it part-time with school. Like I sold some stuff on eBay, made maybe 10K profit, maybe. But like that like snowballs, and like eventually like, okay, like I understand how to ship an item. I understand how to find the value of an item like pretty well now. And that's like massive skills to have at your foundation. And so like jump into something too extreme too quickly when you don't even know how to ship an item or price an item or source an item is just, it's kind of hard. It's doable. It's just more of a learning curve.
Yeah, there's definitely a learning curve, but having like a Discord or having, YouTube at your fingertips, it's so easy to like, even like DMing other sellers on Instagram. Like you see some of the people that are where you kind of want to be. I've messaged tons of people and like they've gotten right back to me with tips or answering some of my questions, which is cool. There's a good community. So yeah, there's a lot of help out there. And, if you run into a wall, there's always somebody to reach out to that can help you kind of navigate around or kind of guide you and get you where you want to be. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, cool. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. This was a bunch of fun. We should definitely hop on video another time, but I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching and hope you have a good rest of your day and take care.